Hello again, everybody. It's Amanda, and welcome back to Fiction in Flannels. So last time I made a video, I told you guys that I was reading a really long book, and it was taking me a while to get a review. I'm happy to say that I have finished that book, and my goodness, it was worth it. This book had me on the edge of my seat. I was completely engrossed. I did not want to put it down. I haven't felt this much passion for a book in such a long time. That book is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So the story takes place in the kingdom of Orisha, which is highly based on African culture. And in this kingdom, there are 10 children of the Earth Mother who are all granted magical powers from the Earth Mother, and those powers are passed on to white-haired people called diviners. The king of Orisha is terrified of this magic, and in order to keep it down, he commits mass genocide against the diviners, killing the main character Zelly's mother in the process. It's years later, and Zelly goes into the market running into Princess Amari, who has a scroll that grants powers to diviners like Zelly. Together, along with Zelly's brother Zane, the three go out to restore magic to the entire kingdom for good. I was really excited to read this novel. My sister had recommended it to me, especially when she found out I was starting this channel, and she loaned it to me about 2 weeks ago. Can we just take a second to admire the beautiful maps inside this book? Look at this. It's nice, detailed, and illustrated. Another thing I really like is right here. So this lists the different magi clans. I mentioned before how there were 10 children of the Earth Goddess who gave their gifts to each person, each of the diviners. And this lists each of those gods and goddesses and their respective powers, which I think is really cool and useful to use. It kind of reminds me of if you've read the Warrior series, they had kind of the different clan breakdowns and descriptions of the different cats so you could keep track of all the characters. And I just thought this was a really nice way just to keep track of everything and also engage with the world before you start reading the actual novel. The tone of this book is very similar to The Girl of Fire and Thorns and other epic fantasy novels that I've read in the past. It has a very larger-than-life sort of feel to it. To demonstrate, I'm gonna read my favorite passage from this book where I really felt that larger-than-life tone rang through. Before today, magic didn't have a face, not beyond beggars' tales and the hushed undertones of servants' stories. It died 11 years ago. It only lived in the fear in Father's eyes. Magic didn't breathe. It didn't strike or attack. Magic didn't kill my writers and trap me inside its grasp. There are no moves, no counterattacks. In the face of magic, we become ants. Whoa! Just in that paragraph alone, you can see the transition from magic to this intangible fairy tale-like thing into a very real danger. So characters are always my favorite part in a novel, and I just gotta say, the characters in this book just leapt off the page. They have very well-defined personalities and very well-defined motivations. Even for the characters where you can't see what's going on in their head, you can tell by their personalities and their relationships with the people around them why they make certain decisions, whether or not they're wise decisions. You at least see the justification behind them. It never feels like a decision is made just so the plot can move forward. While their decisions do help the plot move forward, it's because this is something that they would do as a character. Zelly, who really thinks with her heart, she makes decisions that seem very right in the moment, and it's usually to defend those who cannot defend themselves, but they usually end up complicating matters more. And because we see these actions and their consequences, we understand why Zelly is so desperate to prove herself to the people around her, and why she's so terrified that she's going to fail to bring magic back. She's so used to failing, this feels like just another thing that's gonna blow up in her face. And that's part of what makes her such a real and relatable character. Also, because these characters are so real, the pains and death that they experience throughout the novel becomes all the more real. I usually don't get too attached to characters in fantasy novels, especially because there seems to be a trend where authors love to kill the ones that I love. I'm looking at you, Rick Riordan. But I couldn't help but get attached to these characters because they were so real to me. And because they were so real to me, whenever they experienced loss, it almost felt like I was the one losing a close friend. Despite all the bloodbath and death in the novel, there's still a very strong power of compassion. When Amari lacks in physical strength, she makes up in emotional strength, and that might seem meager in comparison, but for these siblings who have lost so much in their life, who can trust almost no one, for a princess, the daughter of the man who killed their father, that is probably the greatest gift she can give them, and I think we can take a lesson from Amari. For different kinds of strengths, and for people who have experienced so much loss, emotional is the best kind you can give them. Okay, can we talk about Inan and Zelly's relationship? Oh, why? How did this happen? I knew they were gonna end up together, and I knew it shouldn't happen because they were bloodthirsty enemies who were out to kill each other, so how the heck did I still get attached to their relationship? I'll tell you why. There's a saying probably a lot of you know, that you can't really hate someone until you know their story. In Inan's case, because he can look into Zelly's memories and actually experience the pain that she's experienced from losing her mother in such a violent, horrific way, he's able to see Zelly not just as this maggot, as they call them, but as a human person with feelings and who has been genuinely hurt by his father. And through that pain, he's able to see the mistakes that he doesn't want to repeat, and that motivates him to want to create a better Orisha for everybody. On Zelly's part, she knows that Inan is a magi, something that his father would kill him for. Zelly knowing this secret is automatically put on the same level as Inan. Also because she can roast him like a morning espresso shot. Having lived in fear of magic for the same reason as Inan, Zelly is able to sympathize with him even if she's not necessarily convinced that he's changed his ways. And because I see them sharing this vulnerability with each other, I can understand why they did end up together. She doesn't hate him as much. I mean, obviously, since they ended up making out in a couple chapters later. When they do get together, it's really beautiful. You see Inan as this hopeful, unfearful person who wants to embrace his magic and create a better future for Zelly and him. And you see Zelly finally choosing to hope instead of giving to all of her bitterness over her mother's death, and you really want to see their futures realized. Then it all went downhill. Inan's death probably broke my heart the most, not necessarily because he was my favorite character, but because you see him change his mind. He is so close to choosing the right path. He could have fought by Zelly's side, embracing his magical powers and using it to help her finally restore magic once and for all, and create this happy future that he desperately wanted for the both of them. But because he so desperately wants to please his father, and he's so fearful of what would happen if magic fell into the wrong hands, he nearly destroys that hope for everyone in the novel. And after all the sacrifice he goes through to please his father and become the perfect king, the perfect son that he wanted it to be, in the end he dies by his father's own hands. That just gets me. Don't be an Inan who blindly follows the system that inevitably screws you over in the end. Use your gifts to bring justice. I said before that with all this sympathy and compassion, there came a lot of pain. You see so many characters hoping for a better future with goals and motivation in their lives that when you see their stories cut short by death, it really hurts you inside. At the end of the novel, there's an author's note saying that she wrote this in response to all the police brutality that she saw all over the media, and that she wanted to create a story that would help us sympathize with all of the victims who lost their mothers, their husbands, their children. She wanted to demonstrate what that pain was like, having to lose people who were defenseless. And I have to say, job well done. I don't know what my response is going to be other than to promote this book since it is so amazing and its message is so poignant. But I will say my takeaway from this novel is, in just a messed up world full of pain and suffering, be a Zelly. Be an Amari. Use your emotional strength, your physical strength, whatever abilities you have to help those people in pain and give them power where they feel powerless. Try to make a better world. And that was Children of Blood and Bone. Thank you for watching this review. Be sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, the whole works. And thank you to all the booktubers who welcomed me to booktube in my last video. Each one of your comments just made me so happy and you were so encouraging, and I just want to say a shout out of thanks to you all. I'll be back next week with some new books and hopefully some new flannels. Goodbye! Mwah! Wait, a cliffhanger? Dang it, Rick! Please be sure to... But, let me say this. This is Throne of Glass run...
This is Throne of Glass run... This is Throne of Glass run... This is Throne of Glass... This is Throne of Glass run...